Okay, we live. So thank you everybody on the Zoom, the Facebook, the YouTube that typically check us out between the hours of 6 and 8 as we welcome you Northwest Austin Council. We had a lot of technical difficulties. I myself was blocked in. I had a networking event and some guy chose to put his Escalade right in the driveway and nobody could leave till he moved. But guess what? He was a retired judge, so I think he thought he could do whatever he wanted to do. But that's how things go sometimes. So today, got a treat for y'all. We got a treat. So last week we left off, we were talking about, economic possibilities, talking about the potential of service and or product oriented moves that can be made in the Austin community so that we can support ourselves. And so while we wanted to have that conversation again, my apologies for our technical difficulties. We wanted to have that conversation so that we can lead into this conversation where we have members of Below the Line, which is Jill Miller, Chad Ware, and even myself. Hey, man, surprise, y'all didn't know, but we got something, like I said, just a treat to talk about. And actually, we want to talk about how we are going to close wealth gap in the African-American communities just like Austin and Garfield and Lawndale and Southside communities. They don't get that much hype over here. It's all about the West Side, baby. But anyway, I ain't gonna do too much because I'm gonna let Chad and Jill introduce themselves to everybody that's tuning in. And as y'all know, listen, if you got questions, comments, or anything, just jump right in, man. This conversation is for all of us. So without further ado, I'm gonna start with my ladies. Jill.
Thanks, Deandre.
How are you?
How are you today?
Good. I'm here.
Good. So we've known each other a while. Thaddeus, come on in.
Hey,
We've also got Thaddeus
what's
Williams.
going on, Thaddeus?
So Below the Line is something that was born out here on the West Side at Above and Beyond. I'd say it was fully became involved in Thaddeus and Deandre's group Off to the Races that we do on Friday afternoons. And it is a company that is looking at wealth gap in the industrial food processing space and ecosystem in terms of how do we look at supply chain and how do we look at the entire organization through the lens of closing wealth gap for people of color in our communities. So we do two things. Number one, we are looking to buy companies where there's a high number of workers of color, convert those companies into employee-owned organizations in order to seed wealth generationally and create sustainable wealth. And then number two, we are educating and raising awareness for larger organizations, big food processing companies, consumer packaged goods companies, on supply chain and how they look at their entire strategy and supplier diversity and supply chain through the lens of closing the wealth gap. And I'm very blessed to be here. So thanks for having us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Jill. Chad, what's your story?
So I'm Chad Ware. I also work in the food industry, and Jill and I have thought for a long time about can we do something good, or can we keep doing what we've been doing to support ourselves? And one of the things we came to the realization is we can start doing something good where we're already supporting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talked about closing the wealth gap in Chicago, and we thought about whether or not we could do it within the food industry in Chicago, we just started looking around and we realized there's 1,200 food manufacturing companies in the city of Chicago, and if you include the greater Chicago area, that number is something like 3,500. Mm-hmm. They employ 55,000 people in this area, and still food insecurity among the Black community in Chicago is 3 times the national rate of food insecurity. So we're manufacturing the food for the entire Midwest right here in Chicago, and we're still not adequately feeding the people who live here. And part of what we feel the solution to that is to bring wealth into those communities, to bring business ownership into those communities, to bring entrepreneurship into those communities,
Mhm.
that builds sustainable wealth so that you don't have to intervene at this level generation after generation,
Mhm.
because you build that wealth that builds on itself in
Mm.
the next generation.
Jill,
Yes.
for the listeners that don't know, how much do Black people spend in the food industry?
Oh, so this is a good one. Yeah. We did an analysis of consumer purchases within the top 10 CPGs. And when I say CPGs, those are consumer packaged goods companies that make the food and you buy it in the grocery store. The top 10 over the last 12 months was $13 billion is what African Americans spent in grocery stores, just from the top 10 CPGs. If you pull in all CPGs in traditional grocery stores, so a Mariano's, a Jewel, that is about $25 billion in groceries. If you add superstores like Walmart, Targets, that's another $14 billion in groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking food groceries. So $39 billion in the last 12 months has been spent by African American people in grocery stores. That's a test of about 70,000 grocery stores in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And what we realized after an analysis of a lot of the supplier base within food processing, specifically around equipment and consumables, I looked at 500 companies and found 0 Black-owned suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
So that says to me that there is a community spending $39 billion a year on groceries, and nothing they put in their cart or their pantry is packaged or processed on a piece of equipment sold to that industry by Black people. And that's right. And you and I, you were there during the day, one of the days of the Epiphany, right?
So I want to make the vision clear for my people that's on Zoom. Black people spend $39 billion, would it be, yearly in the food packaging industry, and we control 0 of that, right? And just to think, if we could have one operation where we were controlling the manufacturing and the output of the food that we actually buy, like how life-changing would that be? You know what I mean? Like all of the places where we spend our money, we don't own anything. And a lot of us always talk about, well, what are we going to do in the Black community to move our situation past where it currently is? Ownership. Ownership has always been the way to do it. And so here's an idea that Jill and Chad came together to put on the table where Black people can now own one of the industries, or at least own in part of one of the industries in which they spend the most money. Like, how awesome is that? You know, if anybody on the Zoom want to jump in, please do so. Like this is gonna be I think this is big. I think this is amazing.
I think it's huge, and I want to be fair to the CPGs, right? So they're trying to look at supplier diversity. I don't want to throw them under the bus. They are looking at this. A lot of people are looking at this, and I think Thaddeus and Deandre, you guys have both known me for a while now. What I found was people want to help, right? There's all kinds of people that say, I want to help. I want to have a more diverse supplier base. I want to have more people of color in my business, whatever that means. More women, right? Because for me, the conversation started with being a woman, and then I was like, whoa, this is much bigger than girls versus boys, right? It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And this is a long game. But I think more and more people are waking up to, we have to look at it from a different direction. And that's what our whole mission is, right? I think we say it all the time, right? There's not a book. We talk to our partners at the YWCA. We say, there's not a book. We're writing the book. So we're looking for feedback throughout this, right? Deandre, you're on our board. You've been instrumental in the psychological side of this. But we want feedback, right? I mean, we're 2 white people trying to leverage our networks as best we can. But if you've got, I mean, open mic.
I mean,
I'd just interject one more thing, because you're right. People are starting to look at this, and they're starting to say, I do want my suppliers to be more diverse, and I can't find them. And we started to look at why that is. It's because these types of businesses are so capital intensive to get into, right? You need a lot of money to buy one of these in the first place.
Big barrier to entry.
That's why we're
Huge.
looking at this from a lot of different angles to find the right way to break that barrier the first time. Because why do other people have that capital, right? It's because they've inherited it from their parents. It's because somebody else in their neighborhood has it to loan to them. That's the barrier you have to break through. And once you're through that wall, you don't go back, right? Because then that money is in that neighborhood. That money is in that family. And the next generation does. That's when Jill talks about seeding wealth. That's, I think, what she's talking about.
Sure, yeah. Well, and I think it also, I mean, for anybody listening, I mean, we're putting together an incubator with the YWCA, and we're actively looking for, in this case, Black women to help them grow a business related to the food industry and help them scale their business, connect them in, do it responsibly. So, yeah, I'll shut up now.
No worries. I just want to reiterate what Jill said, just in case you missed it. She's actively looking for 8 Black women entrepreneurs that she can put through an incubator who have ideas for a business so that we can help their business grow. This is something that she's actively doing right now. I say we because as a business psychologist, I'm sure that I could be necessary. I'm sure I could be helpful in that sense as well, you know. So I want to make sure I include myself just a little bit, you know. We have other guests in the building though, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't take all the time up talking with Jill and Chad because we got Thaddeus here. This Thaddeus is the connector between Jill and I. This is how we met. So let's bring Thaddeus in and talk a little bit about yourself and what do you think about what Jill and Chad they're trying to do here?
Wow, this is totally unexpected.
Come on over here.
You was just trying to be in the audience?
Yeah, I mean, it was really
No,
neat.
we weren't.
Oh
My
man.
buddy Cliff came in.
Oh, Cliff, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing? Because we, I think since.
Just pick the
Am I okay?
Oh yeah, you okay? You okay?
We're
gonna swing. All we gotta do is swing that around like that.
Oh, I need to be on camera. I wasn't thinking.
Oh man.
So
Man, you here?
Right. I think since this issue with George Floyd murder, it sparked this situation with this DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and with it sparked this interest in folks around the globe in terms of like the inequity with Black folks in so many areas. Wealth is just one of them. And, when Jill came in and started to at least talk about it, because I think one of the huge things in Black communities is that we don't own anything. And so, even if you look at, if you rent a car, right, you use it, you give it back, you're not going to wash it, clean it, turn it in, you turn it back in. Right? If you own in the community, you'd be more apt to take care of the things that you own rather than if you were renting something. So, but what Cliff and I are most interested in is, and this too, Deandre, is we belong to a group called Off to the Races. And in the group, we've done what we call kind of the treatment plan for the 60624 and the 60612 zip code, whereby we want to stop 2 things. And this is not based on what we want to do. It's kind of what Jill said. It's like we sent out a survey to the community. The community reacted to the survey, and essentially what they said is they want to address 2 things. One is the crime in the community, 2, 4, and 12, and better education for the folks. So what we're thinking is that what Jill had talked about in terms of bringing in wealth in these communities, I think that's gonna actually have a trickle effect on crime.
Absolutely.
A trickle effect on the educational system.
Absolutely.
So we're like all in. We're also interested in one more element that we think is producing some of the crimes in the community is returning citizens coming back through the reentry program. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Cliff and I are interested in working with folks. We're just going to call them returning citizens,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who absolutely have no place to go when they get out of prison. So we want to try to house these folks, give them education, provide education for them, provide at least some job opportunities for them. And so we're just all in. We're just all in on whatever we can do and however we can benefit each other in this venture.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Off to the races, which is held at above and beyond. And what is the address?
It's 2942 West Lake Street. We meet every Friday from 1 until 4.
And that is where, again, I met Jill. And this is how I met Jill. Jill was talking about this idea in the food packaging industry. And so when she broke it down, because she was like, okay, and to be clear, what happens in Above and Beyond and Off to the Races is a conversation about race in America. And you have a lot of individuals that are sharing their stories. And a lot of it can get very deep, right? And so Jill was saying, listen, I understand to a certain degree, obviously being a white woman, the traumas that you guys have experienced. But this is a time now where people they're willing to make something happen. She said, "What's the plan, guys? We got to make something happen." And she was like, "Cause I'm thinking about this food industry thing. I think it can go somewhere. But this is what I have." And so she started talking about it. First thing I said is, listen, I'm gonna tell you like this: you as a white woman, you ain't gonna be able to sell that. You can't come to no African American community as a white woman telling us what we gonna be able to do, right? And so she was like, "Well, you got to be on board then, Deandre." And I was like, "I bet." And here we are. So, I think it's, but I like Jill because I met her like that, and it didn't cause her to panic or anything. She just said, "All right, well, I want to be intentional about doing something for the community, and I want to make sure that I bring good people in to do it with me." And so, we're here now. And here is, where are we, Chad? Where are we in this process?
So we are funded to buy our first company to convert to employee ownership. That means we've got capital ready. We're looking for a company that meets the right criteria, right? Because we want it to impact the racial wealth gap, not just the wealth gap, right? So we want to make sure that a certain percentage of the people who work there are Black. We want to make sure that it's a company that's paying a fair wage, but not such a good wage that everybody there is all right already, right? Because we're really trying to take their wealth to the next level. So we've got this whole set of criteria. We're just looking for the company right now. So that's on one front. I'll let Jill tell you about the where we're at with the Breed Love Center.
Yeah, so the Breed Love Center, we are working with that. So the Breed Love Center is the YWCA of Greater Chicago, named after Sarah Breedlove, who, if you know, was also Madam C.J. Walker, that started probably one of the first consumer packaged goods companies in the United States. She was a Black woman, and she created sales agents, right? So she made a number of Black women very wealthy, nearly 100 years ago, if not more.
Wasn't she the first Black?
Yes, she was.
She was the first Black female millionaire.
Yes, she was.
And so the center is named after her. We're working very closely with Robert Johnson, who's Chief Economic Inclusion Officer of the YWCA. He and I met Friday and spent some time, refining what we're doing, and we're working in conjunction with DePaul with the Women's Empowerment Institute, which is run by a lovely group of women with a board who has they're a powerhouse of female entrepreneurs in Chicago. And we're actively recruiting women. So our goal is we're trying to fundraise via large corporations that want to support the vision. We want to work with some financial institutions, consumer packaged goods, food companies, and we're hoping that we can start incubating several groups of 8 women at a time. We also feel, in talking with some of the industry people, is that, right, that the companies don't exist. Like you said, right? People don't own anything. So
Yeah, we don't own anything.
we're going to have to
Absolutely.
start casting a vision and get through the first one, and then start incubating women who want to be entrepreneurs via acquisition, people who are interested in employee ownership, people who are interested in supporting the food industry.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, it's an enormous industry. And if we don't start to address it, I mean, everybody watches labor issues, right? We've got all these other issues going on. So we feel like this is going to create what could be a really wonderful pipeline into big food, not just Chicago, but overall, right? Big food production. I call it the industrial food ecosystem. We all need it, and we've gotten a lot of support at this point. We're talking to the mayor's office with Ruby Ferguson, who's the new food equity director. She's fantastic. They've got 5 pillars. They're looking at everything from food insecurity through to things like what we're doing and everything in between, and urban agriculture. There's a lot of money in the mayor's budget for this stuff.
It's money everywhere.
Yeah,
It's
we're
a lot of
really
money for
excited about it.
everything.
I think we have to connect into
Real.
it, though. And I mean, we've all talked a lot about, right, how do you connect into it? You start connecting networks.
Yeah.
And that's really our goal.
Yeah. Connect first, business next,
Connect
right?
first, business next. Yes.
I mean, Cecil doesn't say it that. Not as eloquent as the way Cecil says it, but connect first. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Connect first, do business later. Yeah.
Don't know Cecil Wilson. He's part of our board too. He's a lovely gentleman that does the Golden Baton Group, which connects emerging leaders to established leaders, particularly in the Black community. He's a fantastic human being. So yeah, a lot's going on, and then we're also really trying to work with companies to relook at the way their supplier diversity programs are, and look at it through. If you don't look at it through wealth equality, you're never going to get the other pieces like education, safety, health, and really identity diverse organizations. People have to start earning living wages and being part of the solution.
So I want to know, what's this process like after a company is purchased that meets all the criteria? What next?
You're the industrial psychologist.
Oh man, that's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to segue to myself. I'm just kidding. No.
Yeah. So there's right? So there's a transition to employee ownership. There's a lot of pieces to that from the financial side, and there are investors, but people who believe in wealth equality and closing the wealth gap. So we're very blessed to have investors with that as their top priority. And then what would occur is that Chad and I and a team would come in and start the transition, working with people, and our goal is to remove some of the psychological barriers that prevent leadership from emerging in organizations. I think some of that we won't know until we get there. Deandre, your dissertation is going to come in handy. You've
Most
done
definitely.
a lot of work, and I think you have experience
Most
we don't have in connecting with people. And then the employee-owned organizations have a long history of providing wealth to people generationally. They have a long history of being productive and efficient organizations because people have a stake in the community. There are different levels where sometimes you own it, you have an employee ownership stake, but maybe it's only financial, you don't have governance. We'd like to open it up to governance. And then Chad, you could probably talk a little bit about what we call greenlining.
Yeah, I mean, greenlining, obviously, it means a lot of different things. We're all here on the green line, and it's a reference to where a lot of this started with the redlining efforts starting back at World War II that marginalized and kept Black communities from owning the things that they were invested in. You're really trying to build wealth in a lot of different ways. So if you're looking at the barriers to wealth, it's block busting efforts that depress values in Black neighborhoods. It's redlining that define where those neighborhoods should be. It's the lack of grocery stores and financial institutions and all of those things that create a downward cycle that destroys wealth in these communities right now, and taking that and flipping it on its head and creating a self-sustaining upward cycle where there is more wealth and ownership in that community, so the financial institutions come, and until they come, we try to find ways to help people finance a home purchase so that you're not putting your money into rent, because rent doesn't create wealth for your children, right? Owning your home does, having home equity does, having equity in your business does. And all of those things bring more wealth in around you. And when the people you know have that too, then you can rely on somebody. I think 70% of people in the black neighborhoods in Chicago don't know someone who could lend them $3,000 in a real situation of need. That's a fact. 70% don't know anybody who could loan them $3,000 if they were up down to their last cent.
Well, and that's sort of where, right? That's where Blue Line was born. I realized, I tell the story of, I got off the train at State and Lake one day and walked home to Evanston, where I live. And I walked under the train line the whole time, just thinking about what I have that people, as I was traveling into the city and out to the west side, what they don't have. And I realized, I mean, I can walk up to soccer practice and walk up to a guy who's responsible for $10 billion. Or I can pick up the phone and get into a meeting that most people on the west side or south side couldn't do. And there's no reason it can't happen other than this is just this tangled systemic oppression that has been created. And I'm by far not perfect. I mean, I just decided to stop contributing to the problem. There's so much opportunity.
Yeah, so in short, greenlining is just putting the policies in place that kind of try to undo some of the damage that was done by the systematic political suppression of black ownership in the past 50, 80 years.
I know one of the things that I brought up.
How do we get in touch with you? I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, we're here. Deandre knows how to find me. You can ring me. My number is 312-415-5977.
Or you can contact us through our website, which is belowthelineinc.com.
Listen, I also want to read comments. I like to, so on my Facebook page, I get comments, but for whatever reason, they don't show up over here. That's the way this is set up.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second, Barry.
Can you put it in the chat?
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
But I got a comment from one of the brothers. He says, I like when she said that connection first, because there's not a lot of black cattle ranchers or farmers in order to get to the sector. She said, and he said, in order to get there, we got to have some meeting point. And that makes me think about the fact that I was thinking about forward and backward integration, right? Yeah. When we find this company in this food processing industry, backwards integration, we go find the black farmers or somebody that we could work with that could provide the food for the industry.
Yeah.
Forward integration, we were talking about this last week with some of the individuals they wanted to start a co-op, right? Now we got to start a co-op. Could you imagine how that would be if we got the black farmers to provide for the black industrial organization that provides for the black store? That's game changing.
Yeah.
That's game changing.
And there's things happening. They're not enormous. Like we need to grow it and grow it and grow it and grow it. And I think that, I was talking to Cassandra earlier when we were together. I just got tired of people saying you can't have these conversations. Like, why not? We're having them, and we're all trying to change lives. Everybody in this room right now is trying to change lives. And there's no other, right? And the motivation is like, we do it because we're human beings. That's where you start. And then we start to make change. But when you do it once, right, there's a lot of, look at you look at Black agriculture and the acreage that has been taken away from people in this country.
Mhm.
It's disgusting.
Everything,
I mean, we
yeah.
could, but we could go right. We could go into any piece.
Any
We
piece,
talked about
any
the
piece,
Huntington Beach,
any piece.
California,
The historical
stuff.
precedents, Black Wall Street,
Black,
massacre.
everything.
Wait, see, part of this is maybe should be part of the conversation is that there's such apathy in the Black community around just specifically this issue because of the historical precedents of what's been taken from
Mhm.
folks who they've owned in the Black community. I mean, look at Black Wall Street.
Mhm.
There was a whole Black community that was living better than some of the white communities that were there.
Black Chicago,
I mean, Black Chicago,
Black Chicago,
They
Mecca.
wind up bombing the community.
Mecca.
The other thing is that financial literacy in the school systems. Nobody's teaching these kind of things that even Jill and you were talking about.
Absolutely,
You
absolutely,
know what I mean? So
absolutely.
in terms of, and I guess maybe the psychology is that we haven't seen the value of the effect of what we're talking about now
Mhm.
reach the Black community. Like it
Mhm.
hasn't had any specific impact. And
Mhm.
when Jill says that not hardly any Black folks can go to someone and get, oh, it's you, Chad, like $3,000.
Mhm.
What a tragedy.
Yeah.
But the truth is, with crime, most of the folks who earn a living wage and move down to
They
Chicago
move
to the
out.
suburbs,
Absolutely.
and the folks who can't are stuck here,
Right.
and they feed off each other because the lack of resources are so minimal.
Right.
So we fight from the scraps from somebody else's table,
Right.
instead of going after our God-given right of what's available to us.
Absolutely.
We're not aware of.
And it's abundant. This world is abundant.
Yes.
This world is
so much
abundant.
money.
It's
So much money.
It's whatever we want out here, but we just have to have ideas and be willing to do the work to go and flesh them out and do it.
And it's work. And
It's a lot of work.
I know people are exhausted.
It's a lot of work.
I mean,
It's a
we've
lot of work.
asked the Black community to be resilient for how many hundreds
Real
of
talk.
years?
400,
Exhausting.
400
Right?
plus.
It's exhausting. I know that, but
Mm-hmm.
I know there are people who still have that grit, right?
Mhm.
It exists.
Yeah.
And
Oh
there's
yeah.
good work being done. I mean, there's good work. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work down on the Hyde Park side. There's a lot of good work going on down there. There's good things happening. We just have to keep building the army, I call it, right?
Right. And it's really, you would think maybe it would be divided, the army from the not army, along political lines, but there's nothing political about this.
Mm.
All of the information points to it, right? You talk about the wealth gap, that's not something that falls along party lines. It just is. I mean, Black people are I think 13% of the U.S. population, right? If you look at the top 20% of wealth,
14%.
those people have in the top 20%, on average, they have about $500,000 in net wealth, right? 3% of those people are Black.
Mm.
If you look at the bottom 20%, they have 1% of that. They have about $5,000 total net wealth, right?
Mm.
Take everything they own, subtract off what they owe other people, $5,000. That group is 27%.
Mm.
So it's not something that someone can argue against. It just is, and we have to find a solution.
I want to go back to the Zoom. Let's make this a conversation, guys. What's up? No, that's on me. Anybody want to jump in here? You liking what you're hearing? How you feeling about it? What's up?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Jill, Chad, have you considered something called the Evergreen model in Cleveland, where they have worker-owned businesses that have contracts with 3 large institutions? If you haven't, my suggestion to you is to check it out.
Yeah, I've taken a look at the Evergreen. I'm from Cleveland. I'm a Cleveland girl.
Oh, okay. So what are you saying, Jill?
So I've taken a cursory look at it. We haven't made it our model. I don't think it's primarily what we've looked at in terms of modeling. We've looked at some other things, but yeah, I'll certainly take a deeper look into it. I think it's important. I probably circled it like 6-7 months ago, so I should probably circle back on it. Thanks for bringing that up, Barry.
So let me ask the question. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah.
Is part of the plan, Jill and Chad, to purchase land in the city of Chicago and then do urban development?
So the plan is endless.
Okay.
The initial plan is going to be to purchase an existing company and start converting it. But we think with the Breedlove Center and some other things we're kicking around, right? We're early days.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the commitments I made early on, and I say this again, is I talked and listened in like several hundred conversations. I was like, what does this community need where I have a skills match? So some of that I still have to build in. And I think once we build the connections in, I think that can happen. I would love to see like industrial urban agriculture occur on the west side. I would love to see, we've talked about some simple processing facilities for coffee, which would be great on the west side, right? I've talked with some people about different building materials that could be made easily, particularly maybe for like returning citizens, where they're building housing they're building materials that go into housing. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. Right now, I get overwhelmed, and as Chad puts it, I'm all over the place.
Join the club.
Yeah, but I think we have to stay very focused because it's easy to get off focus. I think our first initiative, we have been very lucky to find people to fund us who have the money and are doing this for the right reasons. I mean, we turned down funding from some sources because they didn't align with wanting to look at wealth equality. They just wanted to fund a private equity project. So I want to be true to that because I know that that's the beginning of something big. I want to make sure that a large percentage of our time is spent on raising the conversation and drawing people in. I mean, Deandre has been to some meetings with us, with clients, where it's part of the conversation is your stories need to be told, right? And they need to be told in the boardroom. So we're trying to work that as much as we can. And I know I'm a really wordy white lady, but I try to yield when it's appropriate. And then we also want to start casting a vision to incubate people. This is possible. This is possible for people. It's possible for Black women. And that's where we're starting, and it may expand. I know there's a lot of conversation around, how do we roll in, right? The YWCA supports empowering women and ending racism. So right now we're focused on women. It probably will expand, and I think you and I have talked, we've connected into some other stuff. You and I have connected, and I'm just trying to use the capital I have, which is people and contacts, to connect in whoever I can, however I can. I'm open to that. I mean, that takes 5 minutes, right? To write an email and say, this person needs this, and how do we connect in and start creating conversations? I mean, if you don't have the conversation, it's never going to happen. But we all have to drop being afraid of having the conversations. So yeah, I mean, urban development, I love it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Deandre?
No, go ahead. You already know. Jump on, do your thing.
Yeah. Okay, but I would just like to know, I'm Al 11, they call me Tiny. I belong to a group called the Peacemakers, and we are interested in climate change, doing something about climate change. So we have some lots, and we've been talking to some people about solar, and so we want to do some solar lots. So we got the lots, we got the people who can install it, we don't have the money. Do you guys do anything with something like that? Then we got women in the Peacemakers.
You know what? Hey, before Jill or Chad answers, I actually have a connection that's working with some people in solar, Tiny. But from what I remember, they were actually talking about putting, utilizing a building to put solar on the roof and things like that. But there is an opportunity to make some money from it. and they may also be looking to put money into it. So I could connect with you about that offline with the connection I have to make sure that she's available to something like that. But do you
Yeah,
all?
I would just say, is there a business plan?
No, not at this time.
Maybe like Small Business Development Council through
That's
Y.
the first thing to do.
That's the
is
first step, right?
Connect you with the people who can help write a business plan for it.
Yeah, you got to go from business
Because
plan to business
that's what we're
plan.
talking about, right? This is the knowledge that hasn't been shared in some of these communities over time, and we would love to help connect you to the people who have that knowledge, and then you can teach it to the next person who asks about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Listen, I'm the conduit to the community. I always try to be that. I'm willing to teach whatever needs to be taught in order to put us in a better position. And again, just being a part of this group, right? I am below the line as well. And so being a part of this gives me an opportunity to learn what things that I've never learned before. This is all new to me as well, but I don't have a problem teaching it at all. So, I'm looking forward to continuing to learn, to continuing to meet new people that I probably otherwise would have never met. So, yeah, that's what we got to do.
I don't. To be honest, though, and the circle it. I don't know anything about solar, and I don't know. But you never know. You start asking the question, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, Jim.
No, you go.
It seems to me contacting the Department of Energy would be one of the first steps that you could take. And I think there's even a Department of Energy down at City Hall. So you may want to start with City Hall. And I'm sure they can direct you. So when you say solar lots, are you talking about, building solar panels? Or...
No. See, like what happens, you can't get solar if your roof is not in the proper position, or, it's just the reason why you can't use a roof. But you can put it on a lot. And we have a lot, and they tell us it's good for 250 kilowatts. Now, that'll take care of 3 buildings and maybe a couple of charging stations. So there are a lot of lots on the west side. We can change them into solar lots. And you know what I'm saying?
No, that's a viable idea. Yeah, that's a good idea.
One of a future conversation for this group, maybe some of the stuff we've gone through, like in the mayor's budget, where they're really trying to make it less difficult to understand the process to get some of the money that's available through federal or local funding. It might be worth talking through that or having somebody on.
Who can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean,
that is. I mean, at a very high level, it's easy to understand, right? The reason a lot of these smaller businesses and new minority businesses can't connect to the government money that's available is because they don't know the process. And one of the big initiatives that I saw in the mayor's budget the other day is to try to get the word out on what that process looks like. So that when somebody has an idea like Tiny does and wants to go to the city and know if there's money to support that idea, he knows who to contact, what to ask them about specifically to get an answer quickly and a correct answer.
And removing some of those barriers.
So there is a business council that will help navigate you through when you start a new business?
It's a new initiative, and I don't know that much about it.
I don't know if it goes that far. I think it begins to start. Okay, so there's a couple of things. There's like SCORE, SBA, right? SCORE is the Northern Suburb SBA group, but there are mentors you can set up with that'll help you start with, right? I think it was Robert. He calls it going from a business prayer to a business plan. Right, so getting the basics down is the first step. But there's a lot of, the Y offers some programs. We can get into that, but there are some programs that it takes effort. And then after that, it's linking into where there's funding and whether or not you want to go privately funded, you want to go for grants. But some of this you have to have, right? You have to have the return. And then after that, you can move into scalability once you've got a solid thriving business.
So you all talked about this being a potentially long process, right? And obviously it would be. But so what's the timeline looking like? What are you all thinking in terms of being able to purchase this company, flip over the leadership, and then have it in the hands of somebody that can start generating wealth for themselves and their family?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that's going to happen in 2022,
Mm.
right? The purchase of
Mhm.
these things take time, though. You never
Absolutely,
know, right? Like
absolutely.
deals they can happen really quick, or they can fall apart, and you start from scratch. So I think the initial process to purchase and close and get transitioned is going to be at least a year. I think the idea of transitioning in the first company is probably going to take 4 to 5 years, is our vision, at least from our plan. And really, I mean, when you talk about wealth gap, unless we all pull in the same direction as a country really quickly, it took us hundreds of years to get here. It's going to take us generations and generations to get out of it. So it's work I'm hoping to do until I no longer am on this earth, and hope to make a very, very small dent in it. Because it's not, it's not going to change overnight, but it has to be one business, one person, $1 saved, $1 invested at a time. And I'm hoping, I think everybody in this room hopes that we're not the only people, and by far we're not the only people doing this. There are other people, but that needs to grow, right? The awareness needs to grow. So yeah, I mean, but our vision is this is going to be, it's at least a year to get a company identified, purchased, and begin the transition.
Yeah. So you all are working with other companies trying to get funding, essentially, right? Some of these other corporations that's already in the CPG space. What is that like? How do you sell them on this? How are you when you go to these companies, how are you saying, hey, we need some help with this, we need funding? How does that part work?
So it's a good question. So when it comes to purchasing or acquiring the company we're looking to acquire, we have the funding for that. Until we identify a company and actually are able to buy it, I have no money. Right? Okay. So until all the legal stuff happens, I don't get a penny. Like, we don't get a penny.
Right.
And the idea is that Chad and I, in that case, but we do have a funder who will give us money to buy a company that's somewhere in the range of over $1 million of an organization of EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's beyond me, even it's a fairly complex for any company, right? It's individual. But it's millions of dollars. So once we identify a company and we buy it, that money doesn't go to us. That money, we get paid a salary, right, to be part of the team that will transition it to the employees, work with the employees, and then we would exit after a period of time. So we don't we don't get rich off that, right? That's not something that below the line gets tons of money. So until all that happens, I'm trying to figure out ways to pay the bills.
Okay, I got it.
And the way we're doing that is we are working with the CPGs to look at some of their current supplier strategies and the way and the lenses they look at supplier strategies and work with them on a consulting basis. So we pitch to them that we have some solutions and better ways maybe to look at how they are contributing to or narrowing wealth inequality with the choices they make in their supplier diversity programs. So, and that's also, I mean, that's not like something you just go in and you realize what's going on. There's a lot of data to look at regressively and going forward and modeling. And there are CPGs out there that are interested in this. So I feel like we're very lucky that we've gotten meetings and attention, and you've been in some of them. where people are interested in having the conversation and then saying, okay, we've never looked at it this way, and it's a little scary, but we're willing to do it. Right? Not, I by far don't want to, like, I think we're in a place where we don't want to say you guys are doing it wrong and this is a problem, but it's a conversation of how do we do it better going forward, and how do we make the impact in the long term. It's not just what I'm going to report next year to shareholders.
And most of these companies want to do better than they are doing. It's not something they're ignoring. They want more diversity in their supplier base. And we think that if they look at it through the lens of wealth equality, that they can be much more effective in their supplier diversity programs. And that's the consulting that we're hoping to do with them, is to talk about how do you do that? How do I look at my purchasing programs in a way that gives weight to how they affect the wealth of underserved communities in this country?
And the way that they impact, right? Are we squeezing the employees and the communities that serve the supplier base, right? Are we squeezing those people, and how do we stop doing that and start looking at it? Because if people in this community in particular, if people in this community were able to, if they worked for we'll just call them CPGA, if they worked for CPGA, they were making more than a living wage. They weren't the working poor, which happens, right, in line workers. They were able to save some money, invest a little money, then you can buy homes. Then you don't have to always be trying to meet basic needs for your children. I think everyone listening knows all these issues, but then you also, that starts to bring retail in, that starts to bring community development in. So we're hoping it creates this cycle of capitalism, right? I mean, that's ultimately what we want. I mean, you look at it, and we're.
Well, look, I'm not against capitalism because this is what we have, but I would love to see collectivism. I truly believe that is what we as Black people need to strive for, because the capitalistic society doesn't work for us. Being individualistic doesn't work because we don't have enough alone, but together.
Define what capitalism and opportunity mean.
Okay.
I think so many people who have been disconnected from capitalism. I don't think it's been available to us as much as it has been for some of our counterparts. Because Jill and you were actually answering some thoughts I had, some questions I had in my head, like how would it look for a community who is benefiting from what Jill and Chad are offering? And I don't mean like on complex charts. I mean, how does it look for the everyday guy who's walking around? I mean, does the community improve? What do they see that lets them know that this program is actually working for the community? I mean, does the value of the houses go up? Is it a safer community? Are there more parks? Are there, like, what's happening that you see that would have them buy into this? And I think would have the businesses benefit even more. Like what? So, and that's a question for Deandre, Jill, Chad.
That's a good point.
What are some of the things that they could see actively?
Yeah. So, what does success look like?
Yes.
For us? Yeah, and that's a great question. With the type of business we're looking to do the first time, it may only have 40, 50, 60 employees. So what success looks like for us is a successful and profitable company, almost certainly more profitable than it was before we converted it from a single owner to employee ownership, and a place that people want to stay and that people want to be. And so what it looks like in that community is the place that if you know somebody who works there, you want to work there too. I mean, then the next level of recognizing success for me is somebody starts to copy that next door.
Yeah,
yes, that's what I mean. We want people to start copying it.
Right. I was gonna say for me, because being a business psychologist and trying to work on the minds of the individuals, trying to get them to accept ownership as an owner operator, right? To to now go from a place of a fixed mentality to a growth mentality, right? For me, success would look like community members saying, "Oh, this is possible. I didn't think that this is possible." In fact, one of the things I told Chad when he mentioned Green Line was like, "Man, I would love to see, you know, okay, you're an owner operator, you own this company, but you also have a credit union right there, right? So now when you go talk about buying homes and understanding finances, we teaching that right there because you got it built into it. So you're only borrowing not from a company, you're borrowing from yourself. And every time you work, you putting that money right back in. Starting to understand that's transformative, right? So for me, being able to transform the thoughts of the people, man, I'm here for it. I'm here. You know what? But
40 blocks.
I want to yeah, right. 40 blocks in the movement. I want to do Sauce Pack Mac. This is somebody. Yeah. Jill, especially asked for this guy. She say, "Where's Sauce Pack at?" Sauce Pack, talk to us. What's up, man? How you feeling?
Well, hey, how's it going, everyone? Pardon the background. I just got off work, head straight to the gym, so I'm just leaving the gym. So if y'all hear the cars passing me by and everything, um, I was just listening. I was just listening in while I was at the gym, and first of all, I think I told Deandre the first time when he brought Jill on, I was captivated by her words, and it was because she has passion in her voice. I don't hear someone when I hear her talk. I don't hear someone that's just talking. And I've told DeAndre this, and I've tapped into numerous shows, and I'm like, I hear you guys up there just talking. It's not enough action being done. But when I first heard Jill, I knew something was about to happen. I knew something was about to happen because it was the way she had the passion for helping the community. So I just want first of all, I just want to thank you, Jill, for wanting to be a part of the community and trying to make this thing happen and work for us. uh and and so as far as wanting to bring along women. Now, is that a certain age range of women that you were looking forward to working with, or does it not matter?
No. So first, let me say thank you for letting me be part of your community. Um, but
Oh, you made her cry.
I know in a good way. um, uh, no, it's really about women who, for right now, it's women who have established um, a business around something that supports the food industry. And we're looking primarily for capital intensive women who are doing prepared meals, or women who have maybe developed a there's everything ranging from women who have uh, do prepared meals to women who have developed a product that might improve the way we package cheeseburgers, right? Like all kinds, all ranges. But preferably capital intensive, right? We're focusing on capital intensive because Chad and I know that side of the world. And we also, we know that that's where, right, when you look at where wealth is distributed in this country, wealth is in capital intensive industrial assets. So that is where we want to start seeding women, particularly Black women, to support the industry. But yeah, prior to that, right, we're looking for women kind of in a range where they've started the business and they need to scale it and get some capital and get some expertise. But that's not to say we don't want to begin a pipeline of women who are before that stage, because, right, we have to start. There isn't a huge pipeline, so we want to start inspiring women to start looking at food processing and supporting the industry. Maybe, we're hoping to do a couple cohorts a year, and that could go on for I don't know how long, right? We're hoping in the beginning this is a 2-year relationship as our goal. But I want to talk to people who are interested in this, right? And I don't just want to talk to women. I mean, I want to hear from people, right? We're only a few people. Our company right now, we're small, and But we want to start developing this really understanding of number one, what do people want to do when the possibilities are endless? And can we help that occur? If not, I'll tell you, right? I mean, I'm pretty open about stuff like that. Is that never going to happen? That's never going to happen. Let's keep moving. Let's come up with a different idea. I think there's a lot of people, women, men, whatever it is, who think that it's not possible. I mean, part of the reason I
Okay.
wanted to get into this, I was like, I want to run one of these companies. I want to do it my way. And I was like, well, I'm going to buy one, and this is the way I want to do it. So when I finally took off the gloves and realized that was possible, it's. I'm hoping it changes other people's lives, not just mine.
All right. Thank you for that, Jill. I definitely appreciate it. Like I said, I was wondering. So now that leads me to my next question to piggyback off what you just said. So Deandre, being a part of the Northwest Austin Council, are you guys are gonna start implementing more things in the community to kind of get this message out about this industry that has the capital available? Because what Jill is saying is foreign to my ears because I've never heard it. And I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of women that I may know that haven't heard much about the food industry, let alone becoming an owner. So how do you guys plan to maybe implement something, maybe these podcasts, to kind of get that message out, Deandre?
Yeah, I think that's something we definitely have to discuss it. One of our tenants, though, it's housing, education, and public safety. So the education piece it speaks directly to what you're saying, and so we have obviously a Jill and a Chad available to talk about these things, and we have this video. So this is something that can be useful for people that need to tune in, but also just the connections we make in the community. If somebody says, "Hey, do y'all know somebody that can help me start this business XYZ?" Then we have the means to be able to help them out with that. But otherwise, education is, it looks like bringing people to an understanding. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I think that we are able to do. I do want to say this though. So we started super late. We usually go from 6 to 8. We are at an hour, right? So I blame myself and the guy that backed me in, and our technological issues for today, because this should have been a 2 hour conversation, but we got to cut this thing short. So usually in
Oh
close,
man,
go
this is the
around.
best episode I ever saw, man. I'm glad Jill is back, man. Bring Jill on. This was the first time I got some clear cut answers. Any other time I ask you guys questions, you guys are like shirking me. You're ducking the questions. You're not answering. You're just doing a lot of wavering,
Oh,
man. Jill straight cut to
come
the
on,
point. She
man.
got a
Come
plan, man. She got a plan,
on.
and I
So,
like it.
man, listen,
I
man. Hey,
like people with a plan.
thanks.
Let us free. Let us free. Let
Yo,
us
all
free.
right, Sauce, man. I see you off the Remy Martin 1738. Yeah.
We're gonna have to have some of that Remy Martin next week.
Oh man, Sauce, man. Hey man, thanks for tuning in. So like we usually like to do, we used to go around and get final thoughts from everybody. So we'll start with the Zoom. Give us a final thought. Whatever it could be about anything as we start to depart and wrap up. So I'm looking at Barry first. Okay. 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 Tiny, I see you. Oh man.
Here's my thought. Jill, I'd like to make a pitch to you for using the Evergreen co-op model in Chicago, because I think it would do two things from what I heard tonight. One, increase the potential size, instead of doing one business in 5 years or so, the possibility of 3 businesses in 6 or 7 years. Secondly, instead of a world of possibilities as far as food-related business, you could start with what is it that you could sell to three major institutions in the Chicago area, like 2 or 3 hospitals and a university, and providing for their food needs as a proposal. So
that's great. I appreciate that very much.
And if you're interested in talking about that further, if I could get your phone number again, I'll mark it down.
Yep. You ready?
We'll pass it to you.
Yeah, we'll pass it. Okay.
Yeah, we
We'll
got
pass
you.
it.
We got you. We got you, Barry. Go ahead, Tiny.
Yeah. So, hey, I was just glad. This was really a great meeting. You know, I'm into climate change, mental health, and reparations. And so we talked about my solar lots. So that can be a reality. So, Deandre, please call me, man.
Yep, I got you.
Okay?
I got you.
And so I just think you guys have a great program. And I've always thought about redistributing the wealth. And this is kind of like doing that.
That's what we're doing.
So,
Absolutely.
I
Closing wealth
think you guys
gap.
have a great
Closing wealth
program.
gap. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Jacobs?
How about Rev, CJ?
All right. Rev. What up, Rev White? Right. I'm sorry. Sorry, sir.
Right, not white.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm good.
Yes, sir. You got a final thought for us?
I have enjoyed what I've heard. I was just thinking about how the churches could be involved in this endeavor. So just looking forward to getting some more information about it so I can share it with some of the brothers and sisters.
Nice.
See if we can be a part. Again, I'll just before I got on, we talked a little bit about what they're trying to do down something new in Atlanta about recreate Black Wall Street like it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma before the riots and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And how the churches come together down there and whether another financial organization to put something to do something like that. So good information, and I'm glad I listened. So thank you, God bless.
All right. God bless you. Tamika.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tamika. Okay. Ella.
Hey, I enjoyed the meeting. Thanks, Chad and Jill, for coming to share your information with us. I don't know exactly how to get you some women for to meet your goals, but I'm going to be searching around for people who are already establishing a business. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be back.
So thank you
You'll
so
have
much.
us.
I'm going to try to find somebody.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Jacobs, I'm gonna try you again. I think it looks like.
There she goes.
Okay. No, I don't know. Well, all right. Tamika, try you one more time. I'm gonna slide this way, Thaddeus.
So, look, thank you for having us. I want to just reemphasize my buddy over there, my silent partner, Cliff, who, we're...
Oh, one more thing.
Okay.
The email address was belowtheline.com.
Below the line Inc. inc.com. So it's belowthelineinc.com.
Yeah, and if you hit the contact us page there, it doesn't go into some black hole. Joe and I both
Yeah,
get
we
an
both get it.
email from you. So if you think of someone and you just have an idea and want to get a hold of us, if you go to the contact page on belowthelineinc.com, Joe and I will get your email and we will try to help.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Miss Ella. What were you saying about Cliff?
Cliff, my buddy Cliff over there. I just want to say I'm grateful to be here. It was a real surprise. I wasn't sure what was going to happen when I got here, but I'm grateful just to be a part of what's happening. Cliff and I are actually looking for funding for returning citizens as well. So we're going to try to be a part of whatever happens in this business community. We are dedicated to making sure the communities are safe for everybody, and that's going to be kind of where our focus is, just part of our focus on that.
All right.
So thank you.
Jill?
Oh, I just want to say thank you to everyone on the call and in this room, but particularly Thaddeus and Deandre. You guys have been a guiding light in all this, and really a lot of the inspiration for where we're at today.
Chad?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Jill says. Thank you for letting us be a part of the discussion, for supporting our vision, and for helping us find a way that we can all work together to help create a model for finally doing something about the big disparity. We keep calling it a wealth gap. It's like a giant wealth divide between these communities.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to start building a bridge across that divide.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just go back and say this isn't, like, I want this vision. If you guys think of things, we want to hear them. This isn't me subscribing the right way to do this. This is a lot of listening to people, right? We spend a lot of time around quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So as you have thoughts, these are things we need to hear, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna, right? It can't be my way.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a way forward together.
Mm-hmm. You want to say something, Cliff?
No, I'm fine. I'm good, right here listening.
Okay.
All right.
Say, Steve?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We got a full house, packed room, and we're going to have to do this a little bit more spread out next time so we get enough opportunities for everybody to speak and talk about it a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, man, it messed up. Yeah, we supposed to have 2 hours.
Dive into, and
Can I just say I want to thank Deandre. I got to really say this. Deandre called in to the group one day. He was at some event. This is back in the summer.
Yeah.
And I forget what happened, but someone stole
my friend's bike right off the bus.
And Deandre was so upset he called in just to talk about what's occurring. He is such a real brother. He's such a real brother.
I had to vent, man.
I got to say, Jill is one of the most honest people I've ever met. And when I say genuine, I mean truly genuine. I've sat in groups with her. She comes to the group, man, and she gives everything. Chad, you've even come to the group, I think, before.
I have not been off to the races.
Oh.
I have been to a event.
Well, I wanted Chad to come to that.
He will.
So I just want to say, I just appreciate all three of these people as much as I can say it.
Thank you. As for me, I just want to say, listen, the way to close the wealth gap in our community is through ownership. This is the model that we are trying to get every other person to copy. And once we do that, success will happen for our community. But it starts with us, right? And we have to be open and honest about where we are and what we are capable of. And then we have to believe that we are capable of achieving that. And with that, I would like to thank everybody for tuning in. We do this from 6 to 8. Sorry again about today's delay. And you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Zoom for the people that's listening. And you always can interact with us. The best way to interact with us is through the comments, because we can see them. We can put them right on the screen, just like we always do. And in closing, like I always say, they did not want to give us a seat at the table, so we created our own. Thank you for allowing us to welcome you to Northwest Austin Council. Y'all have a good night.
good night, all.
God bless everybody.